welcome Year 8 to our second tutorial on how to create your sock creature. Now from last lesson you know that we created ourselves a body of our sock creature, and you can just see that there on the screen. And of course today I've got out the equipment I'm going to be using. I'm going to use needle and thread, decent pair of fabric scissors, a fabric pen or a water soluble pen, and again I've got a second sock, and over there to the left is some polyester stuffing. Right, so we're just going to clear that equipment out of the way, and we'll start off with this sock here. So just like last time, you'll need to turn the sock inside out, and once you've done that you'll need to arrange the sock so that the heel is nice and flat and that the top end of the sock is nice and flat, as is the back of the sock as well. So have it fairly central, and then make sure that's all good to go. Once you've done that, you can then start marking out your sock. Now in this tutorial I'm making a sock kitty, and again you can change the ears as you want. When you're marking, just again gentle marks as you're going onto the fabric will want to move, so you probably want to keep your other hand supporting the fabric whilst you do this, and mark round the ears and head shape of the creature you intend to make. So of course if you wanted to make ears that stand up more, then you could do them more centrally, and if you want to make round ears, make a round curve. And this line at the bottom that I'm drawing here is where you're going to be cutting, so it's just there as reference. Just going to change that top line, just make sure it's a bit higher, because you actually do end up needing a decent amount of head shape for your creature, so make sure that's increased there. We're now going to start to sew along that line just like the last tutorial. Again, for purposes of this one, I'm using red thread on a white sock. Now, if you are struggling with sewing, by all means use red thread on a white sock or use a contrasting colour. However, if you're happy with your sewing, then choose a colour of thread that's going to match the sock that you are doing. For those of you working on the fluffier socks, be aware that your stitches are going to be more difficult to see, but in the long term, you'll have a finer outcome when it's done. I'm using a series of straight stitch in this example, but again, you can use back stitch, but use a stitch you're comfortable on. Look at the quality of my stitch, look at the size of my stitch. They need to be small, neat, accurate and tight, otherwise your polyester stuffing is going to come out from the other side. Right then, and we're going to finish off now our stitches by creating ourselves a knot at the side. So just like before, poke your needle in through the side of the fabric, and what you're aiming to do is create sort of a loop. And that loop, you can just see it's quite high contrast there on the yellow background, but again put your needle through that loop, pull it nice and tight. You probably want to do this maybe 2 or 3 times, because it's going to get a little bit of pressure on that particular point there as you add in stuff in later on. So again, a couple of different knots in there, make sure it's nice and secured, and then when you've done with that, just take a sharp pair of scissors and just trim off any of the excess, and that's your knot there completed. Now once you can see just at the top there the stitches, we're now going to cut along this bottom line there. So choose yourself a decent pair of fabric scissors. Remember, when you are holding those, you have them blade down when you're carrying them around the classroom. Again, when using your scissors, make sure that you use the central part of the scissors as it's sharper than the tips, and you'll get a decent cut. And you can just see me doing some smaller cuts rather than just one large cut there on the screen. So again, a couple of little cuts there straight across and through. Again, that fabric just to one side, you may use that later on for your tail, and what you need to do now is you're going to cut round the top of the head, leaving about 8 to 10 millimeters. So very, very carefully use the inside of the blade, just cut round the shape and round the top part of the ear. You may also want to add in a small incision in the corners there, a very, very small, this one maybe 2 mil, just to help the whole thing shape later on. Okay, so at this point now you can turn your sock creature head inside out. And again, I'm using my fingers there just to poke through the ears, but again you can use a pen or a pencil. Be careful, if your stitches aren't strong at this stage, it may make them rip. But again, if that's the case, fix them with a couple more stitches. Now you're ready to start adding the polyester stuffing, and as I said before, make sure that you allow lots of air to get trapped within the fibres of the polyester, so help your sock creature and make it look more fluffier and soft and less lumpy. I always go for the ears first, so make sure you just pack in the ears. The more stuffing you add into the ear, the bigger the ear will be. The less stuffing, the lower the or the smaller the shape will be, so be careful as you're popping those in. So again, just pack the ears and then start adding in stuffing for the main part of the head. And you tend to find you use more stuffing than you would imagine because it is a 3D shape. You need to fill up the volume inside that sock creature. Okay, what we're going to do now is we are going to be finishing off our sock creature head. Now it's all stuffed, so we're going to seal up now the base of it. And to do that, we're going to be using a very simple tacking stitch that goes in and out, quite a large stitch. We're going to pull that stitch tight as you see in the video, and then we're going to finish off by securing all that stuffing inside there. Again, for this you're going to need doubled up thread for strength and stability, and again I'm using the red thread on this demo, but again match that thread to the sock creature that you are making. So start off with the knot inside the stuffing. You want to conceal knots where possible because we're now on the outside of the actual sock head. And again, big stitches. I mean, these stitches are about 20 millimeters in length, so really big stitches as you go around. Also make sure as you're going around that you are sewing about 4 millimeters away from the raw edge of that cut sock. So you can just see I'm trying to keep it the same distance in, so I'm not going any deeper into the head. And again, just keeping the stitch lengths at about 20 mil each. You can see that just working in. Again, the polyester at this moment in time is going to try and get out of the actual sock head. So again, just keep popping that in. You can see me there just popping some of that stuff in back inside the sock if it does come loose. Okay, now for the fun bit. So again, holding it nice and securely, I hold with my left and pull with my right. You're going to keep 2 fingers inside the sock itself and pull it gently, not too tight, not too fast. Notice those 2 fingers keep pushing in that stuffing whilst the right hand side just pulls gently. So you're gathering it together, and you can see the stuffing is now contained within the actual sock creature. Again, once you've done that, just get yourself a finger again, just pop inside any of those raw edges, and then when you're comfortable and it's looking fairly tidy, then by all means you can start then by sewing in some stitches to secure that in place. Remember, nobody's going to see this bit. It is attached to the body, but it's really important that you make sure it's nice and secure, otherwise the stuffing could potentially come out and make your creature unsafe. For use with children especially. So again, bob in your finger, make sure you keep tucking in those raw edges. Notice how I put my needle quite close to where I came out last time, poke through, and the same on this side, quite close to where I came out, and then popping it through and pulling that through. And keep working on this as you're just pushing and securing those last raw edges into your design. Again, one more time. Out we go. And then we're going to finish that off in a moment. Okay, so when you've got it secured and ready, you just need to knot that. Now I use a little French knot here, so take your thread, take your needle, wrap your thread round about 4 times round that needle, keep it nice and straight, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then you're going to pop that needle in and through and out and through, and what will happen is as you're securing that thread, you'll see a tiny little knot appear, and that means that your knot is all done and you don't have to have any other extra fiddly bits on there. Trim with a pair of scissors, and that concludes your head shape. Bit of adjusting there. Remember, it is a 3D shape. Make sure the ears are in position. They can be a little bit modelling at that stage, and that concludes the head. And eventually you'll be able to, on a next tutorial, attach that head onto the side.